When I introduce a building, I try to show the students that a building is a complex thing that has a long history. It has its initial period, and then it has its subsequent history by other users, and these are all part of the story of a building. I look at buildings as primary source documents. We look at the initial purpose. In the case of the Hagia Sophia, that would be a church. It was initially a Christian church. We look at the patron who wants the building, who paid for the building, and often some of the most interesting questions and answers arrive from a study of the patron. We look at the architect of the building, as far as we know or can discern. By studying the architect, we can get at cultural assumptions, we can get at technology of the period, we can get at education of the period. The more we know about an architect, the more we understand the purpose of the physical form of the building that resulted. It's often difficult to consider how a building has been used because we don't always know. In the case of a building as old as the Hagia Sophia, for instance, liturgies have changed over the centuries, and for that matter, the whole function of the building has changed over the centuries. Many scholars who study architecture, in fact, focus on trying to reconstruct the original function by studying plans and furnishings and written sources to understand, well, what exactly happened in this building? Another important consideration in studying buildings is construction methods, construction materials. What was the state of engineering when this building was designed and constructed? Did they design it conservatively, or, as in the case of the Hagia Sophia, did they design way beyond the known technology of the time? Were innovations successful, or in fact, did things fall down? The original dome of the Hagia Sophia, for instance, was probably too flat, and the initial construction period too rapid for the building to be stable, and the first dome collapsed. This is not unusual in the history of medieval architecture. A student looking at a plan should be able to discern fairly quickly, is this a single space or is this a complex space? By noting the doorways, a student should be able to say, well, where do you enter? Is there a single entrance? Is there a single axis? Or are there multiple entrances? Is the axis straight in, or is one led around? The implication there is, does the architect want you to experience the building instantly, directly in its whole, or does the architect want you to experience a sequence of spaces, either for aesthetic reasons or for defensive reasons? A plan should be able to tell the students whether a building is intended for a single function or for multiple functions. If, for instance, there are subsidiary spaces with their own entrances, that's a pretty good clue that they expected lots of different things to happen. A plan can also tell a student whether the main space, even if it's symmetrical, is going to be a complex kind of a space or a simple one. Is it a square, or is it a series of complicated shapes? In the case of the Hagia Sophia, it's very complicated, and it's fair to assume that the experience of the building is going to be a little bit of bewilderment as the shapes sort themselves out. When one studies a building, one also wants to know what furnishings were involved. One of the great losses in the history of art and architecture, for instance, has been textile. Before modern times, textile pervaded the universe, the visual universe of most people in most parts of the world most of the time. Textiles don't last. And so when we look at an old building, we often have to ask questions like, were there curtains? Were there carpets? What were people themselves using the building wearing? And to what extent was that understood by the architects?